national champion and team captain for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and former Carolina Panther, and his father, Corey Miller, the pastor of pain. A 9-year NFL veteran with the New York Giants and University of South Carolina Hall of Famer. This is the Miller's Edge.
And welcome into the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's arch support experts. Hope everybody is doing well, having a great day. Me and Chase are excited to dive into another fun one here on the Miller's Edge. Got a couple things lined up to talk about. Still trying to figure everything out with this whole legislation thing. Now, I know we've been talking about it plenty over the past couple of days, so we're not going to go too in-depth. Unless you guys definitely want to do that. We always can for sure. But there always is going to be developments, right? Especially when you have something new come out, especially of that magnitude. Well, I'm still seeing developments. As a matter of fact, I bookmarked one of these tweets. First, it was the stuff we were seeing about the private equity, right? And we will hear from Greg Byrne, get his thoughts on that here at Alabama. Again, it's something that some universities have been bringing to the table. So we'll hear from him on that because we need to circle back to that interview. Again, Greg McElroy had him on his show, so we've got it clipped up. We'll listen to that because we didn't get to finish that yesterday. But in terms of developments, again, more stuff coming out of conferences meeting and trying to discuss things that they can do moving forward and how to successfully take advantage of this new legislation that we're seeing in the college athletics landscape. The new developments that I'm referring to, though, is offering things such as athlete protections, their rights, I think even, like health coverage and things like that, a number of different things. So maybe we'll discuss some of these new developments in that. Plus, we got some videos to discuss. Former Alabama running back and, co-captain of mine, who now works with CBS, was on a video yesterday with them where he's looking at the 2025 schedule for Alabama and giving his predictions on that. So we're going to watch that, listen to that, and see what Damian Harris, former Alabama running back, thinks about Alabama with their 2025 schedule. Plus, we got some tier rankings, some SEC tier rankings. I know we've talked a little bit about the SEC. We'll do a deeper dive as the summer moves forward. But On3 made a video kind of talking about those rankings. So we'll see where they have Alabama falling in, that tier ranking. So if I'd imagine, I think we're going to be pretty high, right? I mean, looking at the SEC this year, I'd imagine we're pretty far up there with the rest of them, especially given how we've been ranked with these preseason rankings that have been coming out. Initially, the early wave of them, Chase, we saw us in that 8 to 12 range, but as of recently, man, a lot of rankings have been having us inch higher and higher. It seems like a lot of people are really buying stock in Alabama and Kalen DeBoer going into year 2. So. We'll dive back into some of that talk, excuse me, as well. Per usual, if I can just clear my throat real quick, got to remind you about our friends over at the Good Feet Store, America's arch support experts. Try before you buy, nothing to lose. If you're in any type of pain, foot pain, knee pain, back pain, hip pain, you name it, check them out. Again, these arch supports are clinically proven to provide that pain relief for you. It's a personalized system, 3-step system. You work your way up, and there's different basically different supports that you wear for certain things, especially in the early process. I would love to explain all that to you and more, but even better, you should just go stop by the store where they can do that, and you can even try them on. Again, try before you buy. It's all free. Go check them out. Midtown Village is where you can find them here in Tuscaloosa, right there off of McFarland Boulevard. Excuse me, but you can find a Good Feet store in nearly any location in the United States because they are nationwide. You got one in Birmingham, South Alabama, all over the country. We got listeners all over. Don't worry, we've got Good Feet stores all over. So, guys, make sure you guys are taking advantage of these arch sports. I'm telling you, these things are game changers. They're not your typical ones. These things are specialized, and they will take care of that pain. Trust me, I'm talking to somebody that's been dealing with plenty of pain. Playing football over 20 years will do that to your body. But these arch supports, I'm telling you, have been game changers for me. So make sure you let them be game changers for you. Again, that's Good Feet. And their website is goodfeet.com that you can go check out all this information and schedule an appointment. Again, that's Good Feet. Improving the quality of people's lives. 2 feet at a time. One note I do want to make, and this I hate that I'm even having to make this note because this one hurts, man. I definitely want to offer my condolences to the family of Eliud Kipsang, who was a athlete here at the University of Alabama when I was here. Matter of fact, a phenomenal track athlete. And it was reported, and it was being reported that he had passed away either today or yesterday, I believe, after suffering cardiac arrest. And I was just telling Chase, man, the craziest thing was that, and I'm not just saying this, I just was talking about Eliud literally not even a week ago, because I was talking with a buddy of mine and we were talking about all the talented athletes that we recruit from overseas, especially, in the Africa area. And he always came to mind because, number one, he was so nice, man, super, super nice dude. He used to always be running, past like football and like the practice fields and stuff. And we used to always talk about he made running look so effortlessly, and he had this long stride, man, and it looked like he was just floating on air. And you're talking about a guy who was very successful while he was here in college, along with all the tremendous athletes that we bring over that are tremendous in their sport and are very successful. But LEU, man, super, super, super nice dude. And like I said, random, and I probably haven't seen Eliud in probably a few years now, because he's graduated, but he still was competing. I think he was signed with Adidas, and again, it just was having a conversation about all the talent that we recruit from overseas, and I immediately said, "Man," I was like, "You remember Eliud, man?" I was like, "That dude used to just run so effortlessly, and like he had like he was not cocky, but he was so confident, man. Like you could like." This dude, he's such a cool dude, man. And right before the show, I saw that Alabama Track had posted that, man. So I just want to offer my condolences to Eliud, obviously his family, and all of his teammates with Alabama Track and Field. Because again, you're talking about a very special person who definitely had a great impact on all of his teammates, anybody he came in contact with. I mean, I didn't even run track, but just all my encounters with the man. Always great, and he was super nice. So hate that we had to start the show like that. It's golly, Chase, man. It seems like you can't catch a break, man. But definitely, praying for his family and all his loved ones and all his teammates with Alabama Track. So dang, man, God, man. Sometimes Chase, it just feels like life isn't fair, man. But I guess one thing you learn, I mean, that's the beauty of it is, man, we all get to share this experience, and you meet all these great people, man. And obviously it's always tough when news like this breaks, but it makes you just appreciate even more the time that you do have, and it makes you really think about what's important, right? We talk about yesterday the silliness of walking through around the neighborhood and people trying to discuss politics over vehicles, and then you see news like this, man, and it just makes you, recalibrate on what actually is important in life, which fortunately, I've had experience that have really taught me that, especially early on. But, hopefully other people can, understand, man, there's things so much greater than the silly little arguments or the silly little things that come up on a day-to-day basis. But again, just wanted to offer our condolences here to Eliud's family and loved ones in his track family here at Alabama. We got to hit a timeout. When we come back, we're going to dive in to a little bit of this football conversation. We might kick things off, Chase, with the Damian Harris video. I definitely know that one's going to be interesting. I know Damian caught some heat last season for some of his reactions, some of his responses with Alabama football. So let's see if this time around he is a little bit more optimistic. We'll dive into that on the other side of this break right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's Art Sport Experts. Quick timeout. We'll be right back.
At Tuscaloosa Mazda, they are expanding their showroom to serve you better. Come see their new and pre-owned Mazda lineup.
Absolutely, Southern. I mean, it's heartbreaking news, man. And it's just the craziest thing, man. Like I promise you, I literally just brought him up. Like Literally might have been 4 or 5 days ago, and I hadn't talked to him or about him in quite some time, because he finished up here. When did he finish here? Might have been 21. 2021 SEC Cross Country Runner of the Year. He might have been here maybe 1 year after that, but yeah, it was around that time. So I hadn't seen him in quite some time, but he literally just crossed my mind when we were talking about that. Immediately when we were talking about recruits from overseas, man. I mean, this dude is such a great athlete, man. I mean, like, just could run for days, man. But even like again, outside of that, he was so cool, man. Just a nice dude. He always spoke to everybody. I hate that though. He's so young, but it said cardiac arrest. I wonder if he was competing or. Man, hate that. I would say on a positive note, we'll see how positive it is though, because Damian, he definitely he speaks his mind. We're going to dive into his 2025 outlook. We're going to take a break from some of this legislation talk, but don't worry, we're going to bring it back up. It's always going to come back up. Always going to come back up. Don't you guys worry. Because I really want to dive into some of the private equity talk. I need to just get somebody on the show that can really do a deep dive for us.
How do you fix that?
I'm telling you, yeah, right, dude. I mean, that's how you like literally. Anytime I saw him, he was just running, man. But he's just so like effortlessly. It's like he's floating. And I mean, just not breathing hard, just passing by. Just crazy stride, man. Yeah, appreciate that, Justin. Yeah, man. Appreciate y'all being so supportive for him and his family for sure, man. All right, we're almost back.
0.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Partially sunny this
What's up, Carson?
afternoon.
Recruiting trail is hot. Xavier Griffin is now a lock. Is that the linebacker?
Mostly sunny during the morning. A few spots could see a passing afternoon thunderstorm. The high 88.
Yeah, I heard recruiting is doing well, man. I need to catch back up. Well, maybe we get Andrew Bone on here.
80 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Break it down.
This is Miller's Edge on Tide 100.9.
And welcome back into this Wednesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's arch support experts. Chase, this is how you know it's summer and things are just a little scattered here and there. I had to keep checking like the bottom. Well, I had to make sure I'm like, today's Wednesday, right? It's Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday. Just making sure. The schedule's so different in the summer, man. It kind of gets a little out of whack. But anyway, yes, it is a Wednesday edition of the show. I forgot to mention earlier, Chase, I told you this. The Pastor of Pain is back. Not back on the show like he was physically. I mean, I'm saying physically he's back in person. He popped up last night. I forgot he was driving through for another golf event. I know he posted he was playing in one, and we talked about it, about playing in Greg Olson's event literally just a couple of days ago. Well, he's back on the road, and he popped up at my house like 9:30 last night. I didn't know who it was, man. His dogs were going crazy, and I'm over here like, man, who the hell is trying to get in my house? And sure enough, it was him. So he is back in T-Town is what I meant. So I don't know if he's going to just hop on here from wherever. I know he said he was going to get coffee this morning. Part of me is thinking that he thinks the show starts at 12 this time. I think he might have forgot there's a time change, because he said he was going to pop back up this morning after getting coffee, but haven't heard from him unless he overslept or something. I don't know. So maybe he'll hop on here. We'll figure out how that will look, because obviously, with the new streaming setup, he might just have to go sit in the other room and do it from there or wherever he's at. I don't know. But he is here in T-Town, so that is exciting. All right, let's look at this video I brought up again. we've got former Alabama running back Damian Harris. He's given his they're going over a Crimson Tide sports. What am I talking about? A Crimson Tide schedule prediction for this upcoming season. So let's go ahead and dive into that here now.
Well, the pressure could already be mounting for second-year head coach Kalen DeBoer in Tuscaloosa. Even with the expansion of college football playoff, Alabama missed last season for just the third time ever. The Tide finished with just 9 wins, their fewest since Nick Saban's first season in 2007. Entering 2025, Alabama looking to turn it around. It all starts with changes to the offense. Offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb is in. Quarterback Jalen Milroe is out. We've got the pride of Alabama's backfield joining us here now. Damian Harris, former Alabama running back, alongside our 24/7 Sports Alabama reporter Mike Rodak. Guys, I want to pick up the conversation right there in that quarterback room. We know Jalen Milroe is off settling in Seattle, which means it's time to find the next great Alabama quarterback. And Mike, it's been kind of spicy down there in Tuscaloosa between Ty Simpson, Austin Mack, and Keelan Russell. We know head coach Kalen DeBoer has said previously he's going to take his time when it comes to making a decision there. What have you seen out of this competition, and do you think one of those guys, maybe Ty Simpson, has the edge?
Yeah, Ty Simpson definitely came out of the spring with the edge. I mean, that was the message from Kalen DeBoer and from Ryan Grubb, is that if the season started right after A-Day in April, that it would be Ty Simpson starting. But, you know, the more Kalen DeBoer talked about it, the more it sounded like, all right, Ty Simpson's the veteran. That was kind of the default option. And what Kalen DeBoer really wants to see is a playmaker. You know, this is an offense that when he and Ryan Grubb were at Washington for 2 years in 2022, 2023, over that period of time, they led college football in passing yards per game, over 350 passing yards per game with Michael Penix. And this is an offense that wants to work around the quarterback. They want to be able to throw the ball. They want to be able to move the ball downfield and score points. So they don't just want a game manager. They don't just want the safe veteran pick. And so, yes, Ty Simpson, I think, is certainly in the driver's seat as the most experienced player in that room. He is a former 5-star prospect himself, but there are 2 other quarterbacks in that room. And really the elephant, if you will, is Keelan Russell, because he is the highest ranked prospect to ever commit to Alabama in 24/7 Sports' rankings. And so when you have that level of talent on your roster, even though he might be a freshman, if he's ready, he's going to be chomping at the bit, and it's going to be hard for Alabama to keep him off the field. So this is a competition that certainly will stretch a few weeks into fall camp, but going to be very interesting to see over the course of the season what happens as well.
Yeah, Mike, I agree with a lot of points that you just made. I think Ty Simpson being the guy coming out of A-Day and out of the spring, it makes a lot of sense. He's been in the program for a while. He's been with Kalen DeBoer and his staff. He knows how things are supposed to be done. So he has that experience. But again, this isn't a team. This isn't a program. Kalen DeBoer isn't a coach that just wants the safe option. They want a playmaker. They want a guy that can unlock the deep parts of the field with his arm and can also use his legs and be mobile. And from what I've seen and heard, that is Keelan Russell in a nutshell. So if he has the opportunity and he keeps getting those reps throughout spring, throughout summer, you know, those weeks into training camp, I think he's going to make life very, very hard on Ty Simpson as far as keeping that QB1 spot.
Hey, Mike, I want to follow up just really quick, something you mentioned there, and really, Damian, you too, about Keelan Russell. In the era that we live in now in NIL, where you kind of have to be very careful in how you're making roster decisions because you're worried that a star player may transfer somewhere else. So do you get a sense maybe that there's some kind of concern if Keelan doesn't get the QB1 spot this year, there's the potential for him to transfer somewhere else?
It's always possible. I mean, that's the world we live in now. And look, I don't think Alabama's of the mentality that just because he's a freshman, we're not going to play him, that we need to wait a year. We need to develop him. I think if he's ready, he'll play. And that's something we saw last year with Ryan Williams. He got there in the summer as a 17-year-old. Guess what? He was starting week 1. So this coaching staff is certainly not afraid to play a player, as young as they might be, if they feel like they're ready.
Yeah, and granted, this is the new Alabama regime, but true freshmen playing and starting and having significant impacts on the team, that's nothing uncommon for the University of Alabama. And again, if you're looking at a guy as talented and highly recruited as Keelan Russell, again, talking about today's day and era, you have to be worried and conscious of, if I don't play this guy, somebody is going to come offer him a lot of money, a great position, maybe some weapons, assemble an offense around him, and give him an opportunity that he's not getting right now. And we know in today's era of college football, it's not about having patience and about earning your opportunity. It's about where can I go, get the most money, get the most playing time, and be in the best opportunity opportunities. So there's definitely going to be some concern if they don't play Keelan Russell about being able to keep Keelan Russell.
The good news is whoever gets the start behind center for Alabama, they get the pleasure of throwing to a guy you just mentioned, Mike, and that, of course, is second-year receiver Ryan Williams, and he has had just an incredible offseason. He was named to the cover of the newest version of the College Football 26 video game as well. It was a record-setting season for him. Mike, what's his ceiling when you look at what he can do in this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, the ceiling is almost limitless for him. I mean, that's certainly the level of talent that he is. And we all saw the Georgia game last year. I think that was really the game that sticks out in everybody's mind because of the catches that he made, the acrobatic, kind of batting the ball up in the air and twirling around and doing all the things that just really wowed people in front of a national audience. And had a great start to the season last year. Last September was clearly one of the best receivers in college football. He seemed like he was on his way to be a Biletnikoff Award finalist. And over the second half of the season, there certainly was some fading that happened there. And by the end of the year, I think his final 6 games, he averaged less than 40 receiving yards a game. So the big message and the big goal for the coaching staff this year, this offseason for Ryan Williams, has been sustaining it and making sure that physically he's able to sustain an entire season. That means maybe dialing it back a little bit in the offseason, making sure that you're pacing yourself with your training, throughout fall camp and early on in the season. And obviously this is an Alabama team that hopes to play multiple games in December, play deep into the playoffs, and they want Ryan Williams to be the same player in December that he is in September, because last year that really wasn't the case. And as spectacular as he was, this is a player who I think had 1 catch for 8 yards against Michigan in the bowl game by the end of the season. So certainly there could be a lot more out of Ryan Williams than what we saw towards the end of last season.
Yeah, and Mike, I want to piggyback off you because you made a couple good points. First of all, we all know that the ceiling for Ryan Williams, there almost isn't one. I mean, when we look at Ryan Williams, we expect him to be one of the top 2 receivers in all of college football, paired with Jeremiah Smith. Another thing that you said is, making sure he can sustain that throughout the season and dialing that back in the offseason. Well, I was at Alabama's A-Day, and he was on the sideline. I got a chance to talk to him. I mean, it didn't seem like anything was wrong with him, but, maybe that's a part of what you're saying, kind of dialing some of those things back as far as making sure he can sustain it for a full season's workload. But something for me that I want to see from Ryan Williams in terms of improvement is leadership. I mean, this is a kid who's got an infectious personality. He's got a bright smile. We all know how talented he is. He's a very, very nice, respectful kid. When I got to talk to him, he was full of manners, spoke very well. But I want to see him take that leadership role to the next level. Like, we see what you can do. We see what your talent can provide. We see how people can kind of gravitate towards you. Now start to be a voice in the locker room. Be the first guy in the line in every drill. Be the first guy on the field, last guy off the field. Be the voice in the locker room, because you have played at a high level that the guys around you need to step up to if Alabama is going to return to the promising years that, were before.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's all about that Alabama standard. You know better than anyone here what that means. And obviously that standard was not met last year. It was a down year in terms of what we're expecting out of Alabama. We know, Damian, they did not make the expanded college football playoff field. Mike, when you look at this team in Alabama, what is the biggest hole that needs to be filled? Because we talked about that Michigan game they lost, and that's not the last thing you want to be thinking about if you're Alabama. Where do they need to improve?
Yeah, not just the Michigan game. You go back to the Vanderbilt game and the Oklahoma game that they lost. And this is a defense that really did not win the line of scrimmage. And so the defensive line, and especially the pass rush as well, is something that Alabama needs to get back to where they were. And I'm sure Damian can remember trying to block guys like Quinnen Williams and maybe Jonathan Allen if he was there. I mean, there were some real dudes that were along Alabama's defensive line 8-10 years ago, and really the peak of the Nick Saban era. A lot of that recruiting has fallen off a little bit at that particular position, and they did get 2 guys back this offseason that are very, very critical for this defense, and LT Overton, the defensive end, and Tim Keenan, the defensive tackle. But overall, this is a defense that only had 25 sacks last year. That was 14th in the SEC. I think it was less than half of what they had just a few years earlier under Nick Saban. So getting to the quarterback, controlling the line of scrimmage, having that front seven that we all remember Alabama having is going to be a big key for this defense. This is a defense that intercepted the ball a lot last year. Their secondary really made some strides, but the front seven, the physicality is something that certainly I would have some questions about going into this 2025 season.
All right, we'll keep our eye on the defensive side of the ball. Damian, I know you were here with us during football season last year when Alabama did not make the expanded college football playoff. So if we push fast forward here, need a season prediction from you when it comes to the 2025 edition of your team. How you feeling?
If I have to be completely honest, I think record-wise, it's going to be similar to last year. I think this team overall will play better. I think they will have a more put-together display on the field offensively, defensively. I think, year 2 under Kalen DeBoer, he can tighten some screws. But, when I look at the Georgia game, I mean, if Gunnar Stockton ends up becoming the guy that Georgia wants him to be, and they're playing at Georgia between the hedges, that's a game where I'm going to have to go with my heart and go with Kirby Smart and the Dogs. He's been in this situation time after time. He's beaten the Alabama teams when Nick Saban was there. Granted, we know that they lost that thriller last year, but a lot of people came away from that game thinking Georgia was still the better team. Then you look at South Carolina, a place, William Bryce, that's a place where Nick Saban has come out and said, this is not an easy place to win. And when you have two teams like Alabama and South Carolina who going into the season, we're not saying these are two great teams. We're saying these are two good teams that have a lot of potential. Well, I have to look at certain aspects. I have to look at the quarterback position. Lenora Sellers looks to be a Heisman Trophy candidate this year. And you look at the defensive side of the ball. You've got guys like Dylan Stewart who can rush the passer. And again, we don't even know who the quarterback is going to be for Alabama, much less how much of an impact they're going to have. And then again, LSU, that's another tough team with a guy like Garrett Nussmeier who's going to headline the draft class of quarterbacks. And he played at a very high level last year. I mean, he had a little bit of a turnover problem at times. But, when you look at the Alabama LSU game from last year, I think the reason why Alabama won that game was because LSU just didn't have a game plan for the Jalen Milroe run game. So if they don't have to deal with that, which they might if Keelan Russell ends up being the quarterback, but if they do, I'm sure they'll have a plan for that because they'll look at the tape from last year and they'll have corrections for that. So I see an improved team. I don't see an improved record, and I don't see a college football playoff appearance.
I did see that you have Alabama beating Auburn in the Iron Bowl. So I'm glad to see that rivalry still lives alive and well all these years later. Damian Harris, Mike Rodak joining us as the college football season will be here before you know it. Hey, get up.
Well, and I hadn't watched that video all the way through. So there you have it. That being said, we got to hit a timeout. But I want you guys to really think on that because when we come back, we're going to respond. Now, obviously, they talked about a number of things, talked about Ryan Williams, his expectations this upcoming year, what they thought needed to be improved upon this upcoming season. And then to cap it all off, probably the biggest thing from that video, Damian Harris gave his season prediction, guys. 9-3. He has Alabama going in 2025. And not only that, Chase, he kind of slipped in there also. He doesn't see them making the college football playoffs. He said he sees a better team, but not a better record, so to speak. So that's some stuff to digest for you guys. I know you probably didn't want to hear that or expect that. But let me be clear. Let me say this. I don't want to sound like I'm throwing Damian under the bus, right? Number one, I know people get frustrated when you got former guys like us, in the media and when you're honest and it doesn't always, I guess, really align with what you would hope you'd be hearing from a former guy. I know it's easy to get frustrated, but remember, man, he's got a job to do. That's what he's doing. He's being an analyst, and that's just what he sees from this team, right? Damian loves Alabama. We all know that. But in his eyes, he just feels like this team is still a 9-3 team. So after this timeout, I'll give my response to that. Chase will get yours, and everybody in the YouTube chat, everybody listening, I want you guys to respond. Do you think Damian is right? Do you think this is a better team, but not a better record team? Do you think Alabama sees the playoffs this year? Damian says he doesn't necessarily see them being a playoff team, which that part surprised me, Chase. I'm like, all right, I could understand maybe, he had valid points for his concerns in those games, but he said, no, I think it's going to be a similar situation, 9-3 and no playoffs for Alabama. So we'll discuss on the other side of this quick timeout right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Presented by the Good Feet Store, America's Arch Sport Experts. 205-342-9904 is the number of the program. I want to get y'all's responses. All this coming up right here on the other side of this break.
The Home Depot has fast, free delivery on the perfect gift to help Dad do more this Father's Day, because Dad is more than just a dad. He's groundskeeper of the yard.
All right, what are we thinking, guys? What do we think in the chat? What do we think? We're on a commercial break, obviously, but let's see. Southern says, can't wait for Ty to come out and ball. He gets zero hype or respect from media, much less Bama fan weather fans. I mean, I'll say this. I mean, he might not necessarily get like hyped up like some people, but to be fair, Southern, like if I'm just going to give you a very honest answer, I mean, I think the people that are trying to just be as real as possible with it without having bias, I think the reason there's a lack of hype is that, he's a former 5-star guy, yes, but he had 2 quarterback battles with Jalen Milroe that he wasn't successful in. That was then. I know we're talking about the past, but I think, if you really think about it, when have we really been excited about any other player outside of Alabama, just in general, that might have been highly touted, but didn't win those jobs, didn't win that job in previous battles? You know what I mean? Like, people will have expectations for that person, but there's not going to be the same hype for that type of player versus a guy like Keelan Russell, who hasn't had like a whole quarterback battle to his name that he didn't win, or he's just that hot new product that's come out of high school that people see all the potential. Does that make sense? So there's going to be more hype around a player like that versus somebody that has been here, and you're kind of like, well, if he was this player, wouldn't he have already got this opportunity? And I know that people are probably going to be mad at me saying that. I'm not saying that has any effect on what he's going to do or if he should be hyped. I'm just saying, hypothetically, if I put myself in somebody's shoes where I'm not like over the moon for like, oh, this guy's going to come out here and blow it out of the water. I think that's a large piece of it. It's like, all right, well, he's been here for how many years now? I mean, he didn't beat out Milroe when he was here. Obviously, still was developing. Nothing wrong with that, but that just probably leads people to be a little more cautiously optimistic versus, oh, we're putting a stamp of approval on this guy off the jump before seeing him in full-time action. That would be my response to that. My non-biased response, that I'm just being completely transparent. However, I do think he deserves probably a little bit more respect than he might be given, because, I mean, if you think about this like the little flashes that he had when he come in, like, you know what I mean? Like, even what game was that? He was I don't know, had like simple little plays here and there where, number one, like the long run, right? So people were doubting his athleticism. He has that long, well, should have been a touchdown run. He dropped the ball to one. Or like that one touchdown throw, I think was it last year, where he evades pressure, he avoids like 2 sacks, something like that, shakes a guy off.
800-505.
And so little flashes like that, I mean, you got to be excited about that.
800-505-9257.
This is Edge on Tide 100.9.
And we're back on this Wednesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Presented by the Good Feet Store, America's arch support experts. All right, we just listened to that CBS video. Former Alabama running back Damian Harris. Guys, I'm sorry. I cannot pronounce things today. I spent a lot of time practicing Spanish this morning. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Damian Harris obviously works with CBS, does a fantastic job. He did a video with Mike Rodak discussing Alabama, the upcoming season, his thoughts, things that need to improve, his playoff potential prediction, I guess, whatever you want to call it, schedule prediction, all that. Anyway, we just heard that in summary, and you see it on the screen right here on the YouTube stream. 9-3 record prediction, and does not make the college football playoffs. Alabama went 9-3 last year, missed the college football playoffs, but it was really close. So I would argue that 9-3 doesn't necessarily rule them out. So if that record happened to be, come to fruition, doesn't necessarily rule them out, but obviously it would be an uphill climb. That being said, Chase, my initial thoughts to that part specific. Actually, let me start with the other parts of the video real quick, and then I'll get this. So, in terms of what needs to be improved on, I think it was Mike Rodak that said it. He basically echoed everything that we've been saying here. Pass rush needs to be better. We talked about that in length. Was it last week? The 25 sacks, not good enough, right? I get the defensive stats. We're solid, really solid. One of the best in, the past 8 years or so. But that needs to be better. Tackle for loss production, that stuff, that's a direct reflection of the guys up front, right? They need to be better. And I think if they can be better, I think obviously everything else kind of falls into place. Just like my dad talks about, the best pass defense is pass rush. So that needs to be improved on. Offensively, I could probably list a number of things, but what kind of immediately jumps out, more consistent running game. They need to protect the quarterback much better. I know people said, oh, well, the numbers were better in turn. Guys, I know the numbers might show one thing, but when you watch the tape, man, I mean, there wasn't always consistent pressure. It really it boils down to trench play. The guys up front on both sides of football. It needs to be better. It needs to be more dominant. It needs to be more consistent. Ryan Williams, they talked about the sustainability. I agree with Damian. We did see during the spring there's times that he was out. I know they mentioned, he was banged up. I'm not entirely sure if that was kind of just them saying that, trying to give him some rest. But I do know when you have certain players like that, that tier of player, man, I'm not necessarily saying I'm with giving people special treatment. I'm not saying he had special treatment, but excuse me, we know how big of a piece Ryan Williams is, man. And you're talking about a potential, extra, 1, 2, maybe 3 extra games this year, because again, we didn't make the playoffs last year. Sustainability will be key, and that's just a fact, especially for a guy like that who, smaller guy, he's playing receiver, he's going to take some hits. Hell, they even had him returning kicks last year. You got to protect that guy, and so I think that's smart. But it will be important for him to make sure he is good to go. But knowing him as young as he is, man, he should have no problem when it comes to conditioning and all that good stuff. Now, to the whole record thing with Damian. So he's got Florida State win, Louisiana Monroe win, Wisconsin win, first loss being at Georgia. Definitely think that will be a tough game. I mean, that's going to be a revenge game for those guys. You're going to their backyard this time. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I have that as a loss as well. But I will say this. I agree with him when he mentioned, Gunnar Stockton. We'll see what he looks like. He did not blow me away when he got his opportunities last season. I do know guys can make big progress and big strides from one year to the next, especially when they're given a much bigger opportunity. We'll see how that looks. But I do agree with who was it in the chat? Someone in the chat had mentioned Georgia didn't seem like the same dominant Georgia that they've been. And I agree, and I've been saying that too, that I don't think this Georgia team is this big, dominant team that they once were, but they still are a really good team. And one thing you can always guarantee, number one, they're going to recruit well. So they're going to have players just as good as us. And number two, they're always going to be well coached. That's a fact. They're going to be a well coached team. I'm clearly, very familiar with Kirby Smart, his process. A lot of the guys that they have over there, they're going to be a very solid team. Vanderbilt win, Missouri win, Tennessee win. Then the next 2 losses Damian has is at South Carolina, back in my hometown, and LSU at home. Those 2 games right there, obviously, you talk about really that stretch, right? Which, if you think about it, this schedule is pretty much the same as flipped from last year. But Tennessee, South Carolina, LSU, you obviously know you're getting into a stretch. And on the road at South Carolina, man, that one to me, as much as I hate to say this, man, that game concerns me. I'm circling that one. Damian brought up some really good points. Obviously, Lenora Sellers, everything. Typically, it starts with line of scrimmage, but the guy, taking the snaps is a huge contributor there. Lenora Sellers, man, is a really, really, really talented quarterback, and we watched what happened when South Carolina came to Tuscaloosa last year. Granted, we did not play a great game, but I saw how they played us last season at home. Now we got to go to South Carolina, and I know how tough of a place that is to play growing up there. Look, man, that's going to be a challenge. That's going to be a challenge. My dad's on the phone lines. We'll get to him in here in a second, and he can give us a little bit more insight on that team, what they look like this upcoming season. I know they did lose a number of seniors last year, but I know they've been very active in the portal, and between Lenora Sellers, Dylan Stewart, they've got some good players, but that one I definitely have got circled. LSU, I know a lot of people are pretty high on them, Nussmeier and and company there. I'll be honest. Obviously, look, a number of these games, even a couple that I didn't mention, are going to be tough games. But to me, Georgia and South Carolina really stand out the most. And the other part to that was looking at how we performed on the road last year. Outside of that LSU game, which Damien made another really solid point about, it really just looked like LSU had no answer for Jalen Milroe. And really, if you watch that tape, now that I'm taking myself back, they were terrible with their execution. They never had discipline with the quarterback player. And like you mentioned, like their game plan for stopping the quarterback run, just like we struggle with that, it was horrendous. Their execution, their game plan, it was terrible. I'd imagine, not having to worry about that this year, maybe having a little bit more of a simple game plan, trying to, I guess, defend more of a traditional type quarterback. I'm not saying Ty isn't athletic, but you get what I'm saying. A lot different of a I guess offense with Ty versus with Miller, right? That could look a little bit different for them. That being said, I think it'll be tough, but I would probably have us 10-2 personally. Could it be 9-3? I definitely think it could be 9-3. I think really anybody could. Hell, Georgia could go 9-3. I think anybody in today's college football could end up fooling around going 9-3 if you don't show up correct. I would lean more towards 10-2 in making the playoffs. What kind of helps lean me more in like that positive, I guess, side of things would be number one. I think last year, if I'm being completely honest with you, from a coaching perspective, we could have been better. That's just me being completely transparent. And I do believe the addition of Ryan Grubb coming back will be, a bigger impact than some might realize. I do believe that year 2 under this coaching staff should be a lot better. And I'm not saying like, oh, well, I'm not making excuses, but I'm just calling a spade a spade. It's their first year in the SEC. A lot of new guys that haven't even coached in this conference. Year 1, taking over. Good talent, don't get me wrong. But again, just a lot of new things. I think year 2 will be better. I think Kane Womack and his game plans, I think, will be improved. There's a lot of times I feel like we didn't really necessarily adjust as much as we needed to. There's a lot of lack of adjustments. I think that staff going back and realizing how that affected us, they changed that. They improve on that, right? So little things like that, I think this staff improves on, and I think that ends up making a big difference throughout the course of this year. I also think, the comments we've been hearing, a lot more buy-in with the players now. I think that's going to have a big impact. I'm just going to tell you guys, I know firsthand there was times where some of the guys didn't always, let's just say they weren't always the most bought into, what they were being taught, what they're being coached. And that happens when you've got such drastic change going from Coach Saban to a whole new thing. We're hearing that, now this time of year, it's a lot different. That looks a lot different. I think that can go a long way for us. So the moral of the story is I think it could go either way. I mean, this team, I think, has a potential to that's why I'm sitting around that 10-2 area. I think it could be better. Hell, if we really hit our stride and show up on the road, hell, I think we could be even better than that. But I know how quickly it can turn the other way around if you don't show up right, if you're making mistakes, right? You're being undisciplined, penalties are adding up. You know what I mean? You're not executing, you're not adjusting. Things can get ugly pretty quick, but I would have us at 10-2. That being said, Chase, do you have any thoughts on this? Do you have a quick little prediction to respond to this?
Yeah, I give Damien credit, man. His takes are really bold and he stands by it. He put out some great points, but I'm gonna have to disagree. I think they'll have 10-2, and I think they'll make the CFP. The 2 losses is gonna be interesting, though. I don't know. I've been kind of going back and forth with who they're gonna lose to, because you're kind of looking at. I'm looking at the screen right now. Give a pull up on yours. Georgia, they're kind of an interesting team. Kirby for me is kind of losing steam a little bit because of the off the field issues. Like, he's used to that, but it's piling up so much you can't. You gotta have a different framework for me. And then South Carolina, you said it. That is going to be a game to watch, and I just feel like South Carolina is not the same team of last year, and I feel like that will be the one that'll get the Crimson Tide in that one. But yeah, I have them going 10-2, definitely making the CFP, but I don't see them going too incredibly far in that playoff structure.
That's fair. No, I respect that. I mean, hell, even like a team somebody might overlook. You look at Oklahoma, right? I know they weren't great last year. They did beat us, but you just look how that defense and their game plan. I mean, we know Brent Venables, how talented he is. I imagine that chess match looks a little bit different this time around, but still, man. I mean, look, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. I mean, Tennessee. I feel like offensively, we'll see how that looks. Obviously, they had to kind of have an emergency, backup plan at quarterback, but still, man, it's going to be a tough year. But again, for me, I feel confident punching my ticket at 10-2 in a trip to the playoffs. Now, I do lean a little bit more towards you. I remember I think somebody yesterday was saying like lock in like a national championship year or something like that. And I'll be honest with you, my confidence level in us winning it all, I'm not quite there just yet. I'm just being completely transparent. Is it possible? Absolutely. I think it's possible, especially if I'm predicting us to make the playoffs. Yes. But I'm going to need to see a number of things kind of improve. Most of the things I've already mentioned before I can honestly sit there and look at you guys in the eye and tell the truth and tell you, I think this team will win the national championship. Right now, where we sit right now, I don't necessarily see us winning it all. I think we make the playoffs. I don't necessarily see us winning it all just right now. I do think that can change with some things being cleaned up, but I have to see those first. That's why I'm just going to be patient. First few games, we'll kind of see how we're looking and go from there. But those are just my thoughts. But anyway, we got to hit this top of the hour break. When we come back, we'll go to the phone lines. We got my dad on there. We'll get his thoughts on all this. We got Carson lined up again. We're breaking down this CBS Sports video with former Alabama running back Damian Harris giving his thoughts on Alabama football for the 2025 season. 9-3 record he predicts again. And not only that, but he doesn't have Alabama making the playoffs again. Want to get your thoughts on it. 205-342-9904 is the number. Quick timeout. We'll be right back right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's Art Spread Experts.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and
Let's see. Sorry, I didn't get to read so many comments. He looks like his baby's not sick. Dude, no, I got to meet his son, man. When he came in for A-Day. No, his son's awesome, man. He's at that stage where he's like real curious, man. Just loves picking everything up and stuff, but he's like walking great, man, for being so young. He's roaming around. Okay, it was Kenji that said that about Jordan. Yeah, I agree. Last year wasn't the DeBoer's team. It was a mishmash of saving DeBoer's players, and they played totally different this year. DeBoer's team, and like Bama, DeBoer isn't used to losing either. Fair. You disagree with Damon thinking he's just being unbiased as possible. Well, here's the thing. He's not going to, like him, Greg, whoever, right? We'll just say anybody, like a former player that's in the media, that they're not trying to be like unbiased. Like, don't think like they're like, it's like thinking like, oh wait, what can I say to make me sound unbiased? I promise you guys, they're not doing that. They're just speaking their mind. I promise. Are they being biased? Absolutely not, and they shouldn't be. I think one thing we've got to do better at is understanding, like, you can legit love your alma mater, love everything about them, bleed their colors and support them 100% without, always just trying to say what people want to hear. Because the reality is, in this space, like when for example, like, even just sitting on here on our radio show here, like, yeah, I try to, if there's something that I'm not really feeling, I always try to soften it, right? Because I don't want to be disrespectful. I want to be as supportive as possible, but I also want to be as transparent as possible too, because that's my credibility. If I sat on here and I just said every year, oh, I think Alabama's going to go undefeated and win a national championship just because I'm a fan of Alabama because I played here, I would lose my credibility. If I said that last year, they went 9-3, how I would be looking like an idiot. You know what I mean? And so, especially, them on the national stage, their job is to break down teams, and even if it's their team, they've got to be honest. So I always hated that, like, guys like Greg and if, even like a Damien, when they give their honest take, they get so much flack. There's a difference between being honest and if they're like going out there and like taking shots, like dissing, you know what I mean, in school, then I understand people being a little more frustrated, But if a guy's just being honest, saying, "Hey, man, I just look at this team," like with him with this, right? I didn't think that. He literally just said, I think there'll be a better team, but I don't think the record necessarily improves. That's not a diss. That's just his honest take, looking at some of these teams, and he makes valid points. He makes a lot of valid points. Mark Ingram rise to the title matter. Yeah, and look, and we love that type of energy, right? Because it's exciting, right? Like, it hypes you up seeing a guy like Mark Ingram do that. But I'm just going to be transparent with you. I'll give you an example. Like Nick Saban. He's never going to go against Alabama like that. Now, obviously, I think there's times he had. Did he 100% pick Alabama? I can't remember. I don't think he did. He might have. But I'm just going to be completely honest with you guys. Because of him being such a big figure here, he might feel like he doesn't have a choice. But I can guarantee you, and I would be willing to put money on it, he did not look at our team last. Matter of fact, no, he didn't even pick us to win the SEC championship game. And look, he ended up being right because that was his football take, and he was being true to it. He got some backlash and tried to take the whole lane of, it was reverse rat poison.
Tuscaloosa.
No, it wasn't. He just knows ball, and he knew that this team had some holes, and he was right. And welcome back into the Miller's Edge Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's Arch Support Experts. We've been breaking down Damian Harris's prediction for 2025 with this Alabama Crimson Tide football team. 9-3 record he predicts, just to recap, not to keep throwing it in your face. I know you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing that, but that was his record prediction. And he also predicted that we would not make the college football playoffs. That being said, now it's time to go to you guys. I know we got my dad on the phone lines as well as Carson. We'll kick things off with my dad, and just to make sure we don't overdo it, because I know my dad can probably hang out for a while. We also have the ability of having multiple people on the phone line. So worst case, we'll do that. But first up, we got the pastor of pain, who is physically here in Tuscaloosa, but he's physically on the phone lines, I guess. Welcome in.
Yo, what's the scenario?
I don't know. You tell me. Where are you at? Where in Tuscaloosa are you?
I am out at Elon Musk car dealership, looks like. See Teslas everywhere. So I'm at the dealership and check in with Elon Musk and his relationship with Donald J. Trump, see if I can help minister to both them dudes about forgiveness and grace and all that good stuff. But that's where I'm at.
You're aware that they're not really getting along, right?
Yeah, I know that. That's why I said I want to minister to both those guys about grace and unforgiveness and anger and bitterness and all that good stuff.
Well, why don't you minister to everybody that acts a fool, not just those two? There's a bunch of people that need to hear that. Anyway, yeah, that's good. Maybe you can start with people that even think they're doing the opposite, but they're literally contributing to it. All right. That being said, we just heard from Damien. I'm sure you heard that.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? I already know what you're going to say, but tell the people, man. Damian Harris is 9-3, no playoff for the Alabama Crimson Tide in 2025. What says the pastor of pain?
I'm totally shocked, man. I am totally shocked that the fan base is mad. Come on, man. The man just telling the truth. I mean, the man just being honest what he sees, and he's just saying what I have said all along. When you don't have a proven quarterback, when you don't have a guy that has been out there and won games, who haven't been in big games, you haven't seen that. When you got that being your biggest question mark, the most important position on the football field, and you're coming off a 9-3 season, or 9-4 season, I should say, because they lost in the bowl game, right? The least amount of wins they had since I think maybe around Nick Saban's first year, 2007. I mean, that to me becomes glaring, right? But do I think this team will be better? I think they will have a better locker room. I don't know if they'll be better on the field. They lost some very, very excellent football players that, Jalen Milroe being one of those guys, Tyler Booker being another guy, Jaheed Campbell being another guy, just to know a few players, who's going to step up and take those positions and play at that next level. And do you throw in the schedule? I heard him mention kudos to Damian Harris for recognizing that South Carolina is a formidable opponent. They got a good team. And you know why people have a little bit more faith in South Carolina than Alabama right now? Let me just inform you, because they have a proven quarterback. When you have a proven quarterback, it goes a long way. If Jalen Milroe was quarterbacking this team again, if he would have came back for another year, I think Damian would have said 10, 11 wins. But because we don't know what Ty Simpson is, we don't know what Keelan Russell can become, then therefore you go look and you go, wow, at South Carolina on the road, we know that's a very hostile, tough place to play. They played us great last year in our backyard. Maybe could have, had he not fumbled that football, they was going to beat Alabama. This is a good team. At LSU, that's always going to be a hard football game. At Georgia between the hedges, that's going to be a hard football game. Heck, I mean, they got Missouri. I mean, they got teams that, these are Tennessee, Oklahoma. We don't know. I mean, so I'm not into the projection right now. I think this is just a bunch of, this summer, we're looking for something to talk about. Who the freak knows? We don't know who's going to come out the woods as a quarterback, as a running back. So I don't like really getting in how many wins I think that they can win. Who knows? I think they are a team that can miss the playoffs. I think they are a team, if some of these players step up and become really good football players, I think this is a team that has the potential to make the playoffs, right? So I wouldn't say here on June, whatever the date is, 10th, 11th, that Alabama can make the playoffs or they will make the playoffs. I think it's just too much. I think it's just the dog days of summer gossip that we like to get into. We just don't know yet. And then as a true fan, as a chapsticking fan, it's easy to say, oh, we're going to make the playoffs. And, they're going to say all this stuff, which really have no credibility there. They're just saying it because that's what they hope, and hope is okay. But at the same time, they really don't know what this team is going to be. So I think when you look at their schedule real quick, and I give it back to you, at Florida State, that's not going to be an easy game. I know Florida State hasn't been that good, but they got talent down there. And I can tell you, I played there. I mean, going down there is a tough place to play. First game of the year, your team is not fresh. Your team is not hitting on all cylinders. Your team is still trying to figure out who they are. Put a question mark with that game. And please, Lord, I'm praying. I might even have to fast that week that they beat Florida State, because I could not stand to hear Danny Cannell's voice or something else otherwise happen, because that would not Alabama. That would never be the end of this story. So my thing is, but still though, let's be real. Put a question mark by that game, because the fact that I just stated, first game of the year, no team plays great football. People still trying to figure out who they are. Think about Nick Saban, the cakes in the oven a couple of years ago, Milroe and Ty Simpson, and Tyler, whatever that quarterback was that went to play hockey, Notre Dame. And, we're trying to figure out lacrosse, whatever it was. The cake is in the oven, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the first week you just don't know. So that, to me, has become a scary game for Alabama. So especially a new quarterback and you on the road. It's not like you're at home. You feel comfortable in your stadium. You got your posse, behind you. Listen, that's another tricky game. I'm just saying. So I don't know, man. I'm not going to get into downing them and saying that they can't make the playoffs because I think they got talent enough to make the playoffs if, and let's circle that word, if all of these guys that people are high on, Ty Simpson, there's 5-star players, and if this defense can step up and be who we think they can be if the front seven play, because as you someone noted, 25 sacks, 14th in the SEC, which is embarrassing for an Alabama team with all this talent. You're going to give me 25 sacks. You're going to be 14th in this conference, and you think you're going to be a playoff team with none of it. If you 14th in sacks in this conference, you will not make playoffs. And Ty Simpson is probably going to be in a lot of trouble because we don't know right now the offensive line either. So I'm just saying they have a lot of question marks, Christian, that are going to have to be answered this summer as they prepare to get ready for fall camp.
Yeah, and I think most notably those question marks really, I mean, talk about the defensive line play and the pass rush. I mean, that needs to be better. You mentioned offensive line play. It's actually interesting. You know, if you look at some of these reports, I think I can't remember who was saying it. A lot of people are high on this offensive line unit. It's as high as I think some of them saying like top 3 unit in the country this upcoming year. Again, this is all like you just mentioned that summer talk, right? I mean, I'm not putting too much into it. But what I'm getting at is people are pretty optimistic. With that being said, I think if you do clean up things like the trench play, if you do improve on that pass rush, I expect the secondary to build off what they did. Linebacker play should be solid. I know some people are probably a little bit higher on it than I am personally. I think it's going to be good, but I want to see Deontay Lawson come back, see how he looks, see how Hill Green fits in this equation. You know, I think Justin Jefferson really has a chance to have a really big time year. But anyway, that being said, like you said, I think the biggest one really is we don't know that quarterback spot and how that looks, right? I think it's fair if you are optimistic about a guy like Ty Simpson, at least from my perspective, from what I've seen from him. Again, I've seen him over the past 3 years now. He can do everything you need him to do. Like if I had to sit there and tell you honestly my thoughts on what he does this year, I genuinely think he ends up being one of the better quarterbacks in the conference this year. I really do. Right. But I can't predict the future. Nobody can. I think you just go off of what you feel. And what I feel is I think this team is better. I know you mentioned, the loss of Milroe Booker and stuff like that. But I'll be honest, man, I think this offensive line, I think Caden Proctor finally turns the corner. I mean, you got people mocking him as a top 5 pick. I'm not putting, that into my, I guess, prediction on how he plays. But other than just the fact that I think this is the year where he finally kind of really, steps into that role at left tackle and understands his ability and how to play the position, how to, to be better against that speed rush, right? I think he's better. And, obviously replacing Tyler Booker is not easy, but they did get, it was like Dewberry, I think, from A&M, a guy with SEC experience. Not saying he's going to be a Booker, but if he can at least step up and be, a solid option, I think that offensive line is decent. And then the addition of Ryan Grubb, man. The play call, we already know that needed to be better, and the lack of adjustments last year, that was concerning. If they can fix those things, I genuinely think they're a better team. And they were 9-3 last year, even with a lot of the flaws I just mentioned. I argue if you fix those things, I think 10-2 is more than realistic. Like you also mentioned, with this schedule, I think it's just a testament that, I mean, nowadays you just look at it. Georgia, LSU, South Carolina, Tennessee, and even Oklahoma is even as ugly as their record might have looked. All these teams, man, I feel like are just very much in a very similar realm. And who knows, what can happen any given Saturday. So I definitely respect your response. We got to hit a timeout when we come back. I just sent you a link, by the way. I saw that you said that. Hop on the stream link. Then we're going to go to Carson. We got Bryce on the phone lines as well. We haven't heard from Bryce in a while. He must have heard your voice, man. That's your best friend right there. So we're going to go back to the phone lines when we come back. 205-342-9904. Is the number. Again, we're talking about Alabama football predictions upcoming year. We just heard Damian Harris's. And if we have some more time, we'll dive back into this legislation talk with Greg Byrne and get his thoughts on what it could look like here at Alabama as well. All that coming up right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, presented by the Good Feet Store, America's Arch Sport Experts. Quick timeout. We'll be right back.
365, 24/7. You'll find road and utility crews, tow truck, law enforcement, and first responders working along Alabama's roadway.
We're making improvements and helping our communities stay connected.
We're working hard to make sure
All
you're
right,
safe.
I'm going to run to the bathroom real quick, guys. I'll be right back.
Alabama's move over law requires you to move over a lane when you see flashing lights on the roadside. And if you can't safely move over, please slow down.
Visit drivesafealabama.org, brought to you by the Alabama Department of Transportation, Alabama Broadcasters Association, and this station.
With Taco Casa, it's not really fast food because it's made fresh every day in the store. The quality hasn't changed. The consistency hasn't changed because we haven't changed anything in the food. It's made fresh every morning in every restaurant. I think buzzwords in today's food industry are locally sourced and high quality ingredients. We want to say, that sounds great. We've been doing that since 1974.
Under the biggest cactus in town, Taco Casa.
From our home base in Birmingham, Alabama,
we are here
treating patients from every generation
across the United States
and from around the world.
We're here for the rookies and the dreamers, trying to make a name for themselves.
We're here for the achievers,
who are resilient
and won't take no for an answer. We're here for the coaches,
athletic trainers, and mentors
who are shaping the next generation of legends. We are here for you, aggressively pursuing
victory over injury.
Learn more at andrewsportsmedicine.com.
What? All the budget has to be used now? And we can use all the media buy?
Javier's marketing firm just got its dream funding.
Okay, ideas. Bobbleheads? No. T-shirt cannon? I seriously need some help here.
He needs to find marketing managers who are worth every dollar.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Sponsoring a job on Indeed gives it a visibility boost so you can hire faster. Redeem your $75 credit at Indeed.com/credit. Terms and conditions apply.
Townsend Nissan will wow you with offers like this. Up to $4,000 in rebates or 0% for up to 60 months on the all-new 2025 Pathfinder V6 SUVs. We have over 25 in stock. Oh, you want more? Up to $6,000 in rebates on the 2025 V6 Frontiers. And yes, Townsend Nissan has over 20 in stock and ready to roll. And yes, all models are tariff-free. We have 5 models that are under $30,000. Altima, Sentra, Rogue, Versa, and the hot new 2025 Kicks. Shop Townsend Nissan.
Are you receiving unemployment? Your benefits could be at risk. Here's how you can protect yourself and your benefits. Never respond to mail notifying you of a false claim in your name. Never answer a text message asking you to verify your account. And only respond to official Alabama Department of Labor's social media pages. Report fraud at labor.alabama.gov/fraud. Brought to you by the Alabama Department of Labor, ABA, and the station. The Alabama Department of Labor is an equal opportunity employer program. Auxiliary aids and services available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Dial 711 for TTY accessibility.
Hey, it's Christian Miller, and I want to tell you about our great friends over at Brian Hardy Construction. Where is Corey Miller? He's still on here. He's supposed to be hopping on this stream. He just did it just now.
CNC machine work, welding, laser cutting.
You might have to wait. Do a mic check real quick. At 2:00.
Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yep, perfect. All right, now we can get Carson on here. And good to go.
Just a few isolated showers.
All right, good deal.
Check 1, check 2.
Oh, yeah, Chase, you can drop him on the phone lines, and then we're going to go to Carson. Thank you.
In Tuscaloosa.
This is Miller's Edge on Tide 100.9.
And we're back on this Wednesday edition of the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, talking to Alabama football per usual. Maybe we'll start bringing in some other random topics here and there for fun, during the summer at least. But we're talking about Damian Harris's prediction for the 2025 year. Again, 9-3, not making the playoffs. We just heard my dad respond to it. Said, completely understands. Could be better. Could be worse. You never know. But those are his thoughts. Now we get yours. 205-342-9904 is number. Next up, we got Carson. Carson, welcome in.
Hey, how you doing,
Christian?
Good, man. Tell me what you think about this, man. 9-3 from Damien. You with it or no? You buying it or no?
I'm not with it. Come on. But no, look, I think it's fair. He's honest, like your dad said, and I agree with what your dad said. It's a lot of filler right now. It's just, what's your prediction? It's dog days of summer. He's right. But I do think I do have some kind of issues with the talking points. I thought they were kind of pork filled, just like mainstream media talking points that I think if you look at the deeper context that you can find a better answer, and maybe even not bring up the questions that they brought. With the Ryan Williams stuff, talking about sustainability, like, oh, can he do it for the full season? It's like, well, I don't even think you should be asking that question, because I think it was obvious that second half of the year, Jalen Milroe regressed. I don't think that's, as much as I love Jalen and I'm rooting for him, he didn't play his best football at the end of last season. So to put that on Ryan Williams, saying that, and asking the question if he's capable of doing it for a full season, it's football, man. Like, if your quarterback isn't performing to his potential, then what's you supposed to do?
That's true. We've heard a lot of receivers talk about that in these podcasts recently, man. Who was it? Right. I think Devontae Smith and AJ Brown kind of just, I think they were like Carmelo Anthony. They're just saying, look, man, I mean, not to sound selfish, but receiver is one of those positions, man. You can do everything right, but you still got to rely on another person to make you right and get you the football. So fair point.
Yeah. And so I'm like, why even bring that up as a talking point? Because I just don't think it's filled with a lot of substance. I think it's just someone looking at the situation not closely or not critically. And I'm not being a hater, but I don't agree with that. But as far as the record goes, I think 10-2, 9-3 is safe. I do think we will be a better football team, but I also think that the schedule is tough, and a lot of those teams have gotten better. Yeah. John Mateer going to Oklahoma, they were already showed capability of having a good defense. Same with Auburn. Auburn's offensive line is the real deal. And if Jackson Arnold is a positive for them, they're going to be better, and it's a tough schedule. But I think that we're going to be better too. And, secondly, I'll talk about Ty, and I want to commend Ty because I think he's a talented kid. I watched a ton of his tape from high school, and I know he played at a small school. But the ability to throw on the run with accuracy is some of the best in the country when he came out. And I'm like, oh, that's special. Like, to have that accuracy and when plays break down, to be able to get the ball where it needs to go. I think that if he can be a positive at quarterback for Alabama, then sky is the limit for Alabama. But I don't really have any issues. Well, I have a lot of issues with what people are saying about him, about like, if he was the real deal, then he would have won the job. And I'm like, there's a lot of context to that too. When he came in and Jalen was there, I don't think that any other quarterback in the country offered the range of outcomes that Jalen Milroe did. Nobody. His playmaking ability was otherworldly at times. And I think as a coach, you're like, okay, like, we roll with that. That doesn't mean Ty's not talented. And that just means like, hey, we'll take the positive from what Jalen can do because no one else can do it. And then last year, when there's a job that you have to fill, and it's like, Kalen DeBoer's not going to step on his locker room's toes, like by starting Ty Simpson. Even if he felt like maybe in the back of his mind he could do what their offense wanted better than Jalen. I don't know if that's true. That's me projecting, but I mean, I just you don't bench a leader.
Let me throw something in here, Carson. Here's the bottom line, man. Kalen DeBoer is not going to make that type of decision if the player is not better than the player that he has in front of him. And let's just be honest, where they were last year, the last 2 years, Ty Simpson didn't give them the ability to do some of the things that they have done. Now, 2 years ago, this team did win the SEC championship with Jalen Milroe. 2 years ago, this team did go to the college football playoff with the top 4 teams in the country with an opportunity to win that ball game had the defense done its part, right? They probably could have won and played for a national championship. So we can't act like Jalen Milroe did not do enough. Now, last year, a lot of different things. A lot of different things got to go into this, and a lot of this is on Kalen DeBoer. That's why I gave him a failed grade based on the job that he done. One, you let the inmates run the asylum. You let guys be late for meetings. You got two, the country club atmosphere don't work in the Southeastern Conference. The country club atmosphere works on the West Coast where they're different. Let's just be honest. They think different. They eat fish tacos every day. They drink fruity drinks. I mean, the Southeastern drink Budweiser. All right, they want chicken bog. It's a different culture. It's a different culture, and you can't come here. I was just talking to a friend at Greg Olson's tournament just 2 days ago. I mean, a guy that's very familiar with Utah and the West Coast and what he said was this: Kalen DeBoer is a West Coast guy trying to come to the East Coast and change the culture. Well, we saw that did not work. So now they're trying to back it up and say, okay, we got to be this and do this. Guys got to be on time and we got to have a level of toughness. He's really just a West Coast guy. That's why I have concern that he is going to be the guy long-term for Alabama. I think he's going to end up being that Southern California. That's another conversation. When Lincoln Riley's out, I think Kalen DeBoer is going to be in because I think that's who he is. That's why you saw the looseness of the locker room. Now, that being said, Alabama is in a very peculiar situation. If they go 9-3, let's say the way Damian predicted, next year will be a make or break year. Alabama is not going to keep going 9-3 without Greg Burns saying, okay, that's not going to work. Like, we're good, we okay, but we're not great. They're used to great down here. When I drove into Tuscaloosa, every time I drive here, you feel the level of greatness. You feel it from the community. You feel it from the university. But now it's like we're kind of like everybody else. I mean, and that's a weird feeling to me, right? Because I'm used to coming down here when all those years, 5 years, so Christian, 6 years after Christian. I mean, that was like the confidence level was through the roof. That's gone. I know some fans said, no. It's gone. Now, people can try to talk it and say this stuff in podcasts and blame quarterbacks. No. How about receivers stop blaming the quarterback? Okay. How about receivers get open? How about some of the receivers beat one man-on-man coverage where it's easy throws for the quarterback? How about having a coach that know how to dial up some plays to scheme somebody open? So these are the real problems. So unless they change that, Alabama is going to be exactly what Damon Harris said. They're going to be an above-average team that's going to be on the cuff of making the playoffs or not. Just depends on how they, you know how it is, strength of schedule, strength of record, who does this. So if it's like that, yes, it's a question mark. Now, do I think they should be a top 16 team? Yes.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but I'll say this. Isn't everybody like everybody else now?
Yes.
And I don't really think that – I think even the latter portion of Saban's career, we were just like everybody else. I mean, it looked different, but, that's the culture. That's the NIL era. That's the transfer portal era. I think everybody is just coming right back to the middle.
I think the playing field, when we're talking about parity, Carson, that's where we are now. Yeah. But think about this real quick. I just thought about this. I remember going to see, when Jim Fick, one of my best friends, who's a PJ guy, used to take me to all these masters and players. I mean, I was in the locker room. I'm next to these guys, right? And I can see one Tiger Woods when he was in his prime. And I go be with Jim, and then I walk with Jim when he's playing with Tiger, whatever. And there was just the aura of just confidence, right? It just exuded, right? Just like into the players.
Like
the
MJ.
players in that locker room were nervous. when he showed up, just by him being there, he could win tournaments because not because he plays so great, but because those players had such an awe of him. They made mistakes, right? They fumbled the ball, if you will.
Yep.
They would choke on Sunday on 16 or miss a putt and get the yips because of who he was and that aura of confidence. But then that left.
Yep.
Then Tiger Woods started to struggle. And then I seen the Tiger Woods where he's not so confident, right? That aura is gone. And now the other field says, oh, dude, we better than this guy. I don't care what his name is. I don't care if he's won 16 majors. I don't care if he's won 83 tournaments. He's not the same guy now, right?
Hey,
and that's
well, look, here's my pushback to that,
Alabama.
Coach.
Right, that's how quick Alabama is from those almost 2 decades.
Here's my pushback to that. Tiger still won a Masters after his prime.
He did.
So,
true.
I'm not saying
Alabama
never
still
say
got to
die.
the national championship game, right?
Yeah, look,
they ain't win,
we
but
could
they
get back. We could get back.
I mean, they got to find a way to get that back. Listen, when you're confident, I'm telling you, it goes a long way, man. I'm just saying, as a guy that's been in that arena for a long time, and even knowing that confidence can take, with your talent and ability and confidence, can take you a long way versus a guy that I can line up across from, and you can look in his eyes and be like, this dude, he has zero confidence. Look good in the uniform.
Yeah.
But he ain't ready to play.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way. So Alabama's got to get back to that. We are good. We're not just going to go by what the pundits are saying, all these podcast people are saying. We just got to go out and play, and then we prove to people who we really are. Let's don't talk about it. Their motto this year should be, we're not talking about it. We're going to be about it. They just need to learn how to be about it.
Absolutely. I agree.
That's
I
fair.
agree.
That's fair. I look. I get what you're saying, Carson. I mean, and I also understand his point. But I will tell you this in terms of when I do hear that argument about like, well, with Ty, I mean, Kalen DeBoer, he didn't want to step on. I have to take the stance of my dad on that one, man, because I just know firsthand. I mean, a coach. Yes, could it be uncomfortable for them to make a decision like that? Sure, absolutely. Nobody's denying that. But if we're talking about a team that's on the cusp of making the playoffs, and you're saying like, well, he don't want to, piss off the locker room, so he's not going to make a change that he feels could give them that push that they need to make the playoffs, knowing what comes with that. Nah, man, that wouldn't happen. And then even I'm telling not just you but anybody, just that the whole thing about the locker room, Jalen had the locker room. That's not true, man. There actually were some guys that sometimes got frustrated with the quarterback play, if we're being completely honest with. So that goes against the whole argument that, oh, well, Jalen had the locker room and he was holding them hostage. Like the stuff I hear, man, and I'm not saying you believe this, but I'm saying some of it is just like, even like, oh, just like we saw USF, the players, they went out there and underperformed on purpose. They tanked that game to prove a point. We literally brought Chris Braswell on here. I think it might have been before you started, tuning into our show, but we brought Chris Braswell on here, former outside linebacker, good friend of mine. He's like a little brother to me, man. And he dispelled that whole thing and said, dude, that's the like. Sure. We knew this, and me and my dad know. I mean, literally, your game tape is your resume. Nobody is going to sit there and go, oh, we're going to go out there and not play hard because coach benched our teammate. Hell no.
No.
Did we do that when they benched Jalen Hurts? Did we sit there and go, oh, man, nah, man, we ain't about to go out? No, hell no. We just said, oh, coach made a change. All right. We put our straps on and went out there and played defense. Yeah.
I mean, let's go get it. Look, no, and I don't believe that either. I thought that was a load of junk coming out. When I said that, what I was alluding to was him being a leader. More so, look, when Kalen DeBoer first flew into Tuscaloosa, who was one of the first players to greet him? It was Jalen Milroe. And that's what I meant by that is he was a leader in the locker room. He was the incumbent quarterback coming back. He was, they respect him. And I know DeBoer respected him. And so when I say, like, Jalen,
it's an uphill battle for a guy like Ty to win a job in that scenario when you got a guy coming back, highly respected, won SEC championship. Yeah, without a doubt. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, he can win it if he can outplay him.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, no coach going to be like, if a guy's better than the next guy, you can't beat Alabama and be playing favoritism. Or favorites.
No.
I will say this.
Wasn't good enough. He just was not ready to take that position yet.
Yeah, no, you're right with that
the bottom
situation.
line.
But I will say now there is a dynamic where with Coach Saban at least he did lean. Number one, he had a number of factors. One was obviously talent. Who's the best player? They're going to automatically, have the leg up. But he also put a lot of consideration into what players he could depend on, what guys could he trust, because he also knew that I don't care how talented a guy is, if he's out there and he's playing undisciplined football, he's not doing his job, he's having mental errors, he's out of position. All it takes is for one guy to not do his job for a big explosive play to happen. So Coach Saban, I wouldn't call it favoritism, but he did. He gave a little bit of attention to players that did, number one, know their assignment, know their roles, and executed well. Even if there was a younger guy who was probably a little bit better of a player, they would try to give that young guy a push and try to get him up to speed. But if that older guy that was a little bit more reliable, if they knew he could do the job and still make plays, maybe the younger guy is probably a little bit better of a higher ceiling, but you're risking busts and big plays. They're going to give. He would give, I guess, like the favor to a guy like, let's use Damian Harris for an example, right? Damian Harris is a phenomenal running back. One could probably argue that, maybe some of the younger backs probably should have got some more carries at times, but you got Damian, who's a leader, who knows the system, can block on third down. You know what I mean? Yeah, some of those younger backs might have some more juice, but Damian was a little bit more reliable. He secured the football, things like that. Stuff like anyway. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But
yes, just like Mac Jones and Bryce Young, right?
100%.
Like, Bryce was probably more talented, but Mac had been there, had done it, and was ready for it, and no one expected him to have the season he did, which could be a season like Ty Simpson's about to have. That's all I'll say.
Hey, look, and if that's the case, if you have quarterback play like that this year, I mean, there's no denying that Alabama's going to make a deep playoff run. But again, it's to be determined. I will say Mac had in his favor, some really talented guys on the outside. Yeah, but to be fair, I mean, Ryan Williams, I mean, what we've seen out of Jeremy Bernard, at least what I've seen this spring, that's talent. And then Isaiah Horton and some of the younger guys. I mean, even
Rico Scott.
Thank you. That's who I was looking for. I mean, Jalen Hale coming back. There's going to be some weapons for whoever's slinging the football. So we'll see, man. We'll see. That's definitely the best case scenario, and we'll hope for that.
Carson. Good stuff, buddy.
Good stuff is always, Carson.
I'm just having fun, guys. I'm just having fun.
Oh no, we love it. No, dude. Please keep having fun, man. I love getting calls like this, man. It's fun to have a good conversation like this, man. I appreciate you and all the support. I really do.
Absolutely. Y'all take it easy, guys. Thank y'all for taking my call.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thank you, brother. Good stuff, man. That was a great call, man. Carson always knows
I heard him a couple times. He's reasonable and not like Cedric and some of all these chap stickers that you got following you.
Listen, you need to speaking of chapstick, you gave him some chapstick last fall, and I haven't seen him since, man. He ran off with he ran off with your chapstick. You need to put that Escalator, whatever that is, in gear and try to find him. I haven't heard from my man Cedric, man. He took that chapstick and ran. All right, we got to hit timeout. We come back. We got Bryce, your best friend, on the phone line.
Speaking of King Chapsticker.
Nah, Bryce, is he? I can't remember. It's been so long. I forgot.
I love me some Bryce.
I'm sure you do. All right, well, we got to hit timeout. We come back. We keep on rolling right here on the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230, WTBC. Boy, Q, you hate the media stuff, man. You back at it again. Boy, Q06, if T was in here, she'd be going off.
Where's T at?
I don't know, but last time Q said that shut up and play football, which I said, come on, man. Now we know when other individuals say that about LeBron and stuff, it's an outrage. I'm like, come on, man, we can't bring that over here. And he's back at it. He said Ryan Williams needs to be in the lab working, win on the field, not the media. Hey, man, I can tell you,
stop all this podcast crap,
dude. You listen, man. Let me ask you a question. When you were playing, because you obviously played college football, when you weren't in the meeting rooms, when you weren't at practice, when you weren't in the weight room, be completely honest. What were y'all doing in y'all's free time? Did you spend every hour that you weren't participating in a football activity dedicating to more football studies or some type of development towards football? Or were you a regular teenager? Now, the video games back then were different. Y'all weren't probably gaming like that. I'm sure you had games, but not like, now we sit there and play these online games. But I'm sure y'all probably chasing tail around the campus. Y'all probably out and about doing other stuff, and you start trying to take a sip of coffee because you don't want to answer because you know it's true. Y'all,
you still talking. I wasn't gonna answer. I don't talk over you.
No. So tell me, you're telling me you
I
spent
did a
all
lot of
the
stuff.
hours.
I worked out.
Come on, bro.
I worked. If we had off time, like we used to work the first semester of summer, so I worked. I had to make some money because we didn't have NIL. So I did that. So I was either working for a moving company or washing cars at the Ford dealership, driving the first 5.0 Mustang for the police highway patrol.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we did our thing. We go get that 25-cent pitcher of beer and 10, 15-cent wings.
Mm-hmm.
And we did all of that, but we wasn't making videos and
but
we did what the typical college kid does. I mean, I wasn't no big drunkard, nothing like that. But there was time we went out down to 5 Points, which is kind of like the strip here in
Through June 30th.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying,
those skirts and cut off jean shorts and cowboy boots. Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, so them doing a little podcast here. Listen, I understand. Listen, I want to be clear. I'm not saying like, oh, I love the idea that everybody is all in the media now. Again, I'll be honest with you. I don't really watch a whole bunch of stuff like that. Like in my free time, I'm studying Spanish and whatnot. But what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to go out here and be like, man, they're not going to play as well because they're doing I don't believe that, man. Think about how much time they spend in school. That would be like saying, oh, well, the time that they're in a classroom, they could be like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, bro, I've been in those shoes, man. Doing a podcast should not. Now, again, if they are the main ones
afternoon storm,
literally doing everything, like I mentioned last time we talked about this, like the editing, the posting, and they're over here brainstorming, let's do this, and the third. Yeah, I mean, because that almost becomes a job.
100.9.
Hold on, we'll talk about this on there. And welcome back into the Miller's Edge, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC. Quick little detour, real quick, because we were talking about the whole playoff stuff. But Q06 in the comments was talking about guys staying off the media stuff, focusing on football. So me and my dad kind of got into this during the break on the YouTube stream. But I just reiterating, man, like again, I'm not saying I love that every single body is doing all these things, podcasts, like this and that. I'm not saying that I necessarily encourage, do this. No. I mean, in a perfect world, I mean, I think everybody would say, yeah, man, we're locked in. We're not really, broadcasting everything we're doing. We're just locked in. Because that was kind of our approach when I was here, right? I mean, like, we used to get frustrated with some of the guys on the team that used to always be trying to record in the locker room. They used to always be posting every single chance they got about what we were like. But again, I also understand that in this day and age, that's a way to build your brand. They have the ability to capitalize on NIL. The best way to do that is to be active, to be getting your stuff out there. And so all I'll say is, and what I was saying before we had to come back was that as long as they're not overconsumed with it, meaning like they're not over here like every single day, hey man, we got to get this podcast clip. Hey, we got to set up. Hey, we got to reach out and do this. We got to get this guest. Like what I would do, right? Because I'm operating the show and obviously chasing behind the glass, but in terms of running the streams, reaching out to guests, like they're not doing that. That, yes, would be a distraction in a job if they were doing like what I do with somebody who's literally hosting and running a podcast. I totally would understand like saying like, hey man, that could take away. They have people from Alabama. They literally like the people that run that show. Like I know the guy that and I don't know him, but I met him. that runs their podcast. He does all that.
Nah, I get it.
They just come up and talk. They talk.
But
They
that's
get fun.
time. That's just talking while you could be doing something more constructive to me. Listen, here's the bottom.
But how much time? But how much time do you need to like? You see what I'm saying? Like, think
Players
about it.
need to understand this, man. I mean, now everybody think that athletes got to be in the media. Everybody's got to have something to say. Like, you were committed to the locker room, to the sanctity of the locker room, bro. I mean, it's not about having a podcast and all this stuff. To me, is a heart issue. The Bible, there's a Bible verse that even says this: "Where your treasure is," meaning that thing that's important to you, there your heart will be also. And to me, they just showing where their treasure is. The treasure is in likes. The treasure is in followers. The treasure is in the bag. That's what the treasure is. So my thing is, I mean, I'm not mad at it, but like, don't worry about football, man. Go win another SEC championship. Go make the college football playoffs. Like, that to me should be number one, not podcasting, not building up followers, because you're going to get those anyway. So that's the only problem that I have. And I always think that the locker room should be your sanctuary as an athlete. You know, your boys, man, your peeps, and what's said stays in your locker room. Whereas right now, everybody's got to know, you know, we got to go in here and talk about the quarterback, about Miro while he's gone. We got to, like, man, bump all that mess. Like, get focused, man. Go win some games, because if you win games, you're going to have more followers. You're going to have more likes. People are going to pay more attention to you. If you go out there and ball out and you're at your position, you're going to get all those things. That's all I'm saying. I mean,
Sure.
I just like, man, I don't want no media darling dude in a locker room that's sitting there and you know, fingernails painted and, you know, all this stuff. He's trying to say stuff to get people to pop off about something. I mean, come on, where your treasure is. So what's important to you? What matters most to you? There's where your heart gonna be. And so my thing, I want their heart to be, their treasure to be bringing back some bling to the T-Town, bringing back some notoriety back to T-Town, bringing back some credibility back to T-Town, bringing back, most importantly, bringing back a championship to that football arena. That should be the most important thing, not podcasting. That's all I'm saying.
Well, two things. I agree with that. That obviously football is the main thing, needs to always be the main thing, and that's, you know, non-debatable, 100%. But I would argue that, and I do agree with when you're talking about the individual posting 24/7, you know, looking for attention, stuff like, again, I hardly even post. The only thing I really post on social media is pretty much, you know, business type stuff, whatever. You guys, you understand what I'm getting at, right? Like, or like stuff where I don't really post individual stuff. I get what you're saying. A lot of it is attention driven. People want attention, but that is different from guys doing a podcast that does, you know, generate, you know, money, revenue, and more opportunities in the NIL space, especially in a world where, look, if they don't do that for them here, guess what? I know a bunch of other schools that will, you know, develop podcasts and platforms for them and be able to capitalize off that. The reality is, whether people want to understand this or not, is that we live in a day and age where if you have a platform, you can capitalize on it by building up your social platform. You can get more NIL deals. You can make more money off of it. And if that's what we want true NIL to be, you have to take the steps in that direction. That's a fact. You don't get paid as much if you're not active on social media, if you don't have the followers, if you don't have the attention. The more attention, followers you have, the more what's it called? The more interactions that you generate, which leads to being paid more and having more value for that. I understand that because I mean I'm in the space. I've been doing the space since I was an athlete. I was a Nike athlete. I've worked with companies. I understand how this works. And if you have that opportunity to do that in college, and you have the resources at the university for them to do it, and you just have to be present, you just have to just follow their directions, just like in the NFL. Hell, they have media day. They do things with their social media stuff. It's just part of it. That's the day and age. We live in a social media generation, whether people like it or not, and that's part of it. Q, we'll get you tomorrow because we're running short. We got Bryce to go to now. Bryce, you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
There he is. What's up, Bryce? Long time.
I agree. I agree with what COP is saying. There's a lot to it. We need to get back to the business of playing football, doing it on the field, and quit having all these distractions. I totally agree with that. And I think that was a big problem our first year, and make everybody accountable when they do something that they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And however, Christian, my goals are real simple this year. Take one game at a time. I'm looking like we did like the 2020 season when we did surprise a lot of people. And I'm going to take one game at a time. And as far as making a prediction, I'm not going to, make a prediction.
Dang.
I will take one game at a time. My goal is to make the playoffs.
It's too early, too much work to be done, Bryce. You're so right in that. I mean, yeah, you can do it for fun and what we hypothetically speaking and all this stuff, but it really don't mean a hill of beans right now. It's right now. It's like who's losing the weight that they need to lose to be the best that they can be, to play at the highest potential that they can play at. Who's gaining strength? Who's getting faster at positions so they can be better when the season gets here. That should be the focus right now. The strength coach and his staff is the most important thing that's happening right now. And that's been a little bit under fire. That's been a little bit, to me, under a question mark. Can this particular strength coach get his teams ready? Because where Alabama has struggled last year especially has been in the trenches. They've been pushed around on the offensive lines, on the defensive line.
You're right.
So to me, I'm looking at that. Will this defensive line be able to play on the other side of the line of scrimmage, change the line of scrimmage, make plays, TFLs, tackle for losses, getting sacks? Will they be faster, stronger, more quick twitch than the other team? And can this offensive line, do what they need to do when they got a lead? Can they get into that 4-minute offense? Can they bring in those big tight ends and big backs and smash the ball down people's throat, make them quit and run out the clock? Things that Alabama used to be able to do that they can't do right now. So to me, that's what I'm looking at. I don't care about the wins and losses. They mean nothing right now, right? Because every team got players that we don't know how they're going to be and how they're going to progress. Nobody knows that stuff. But what we should be looking at as a fan of our particular team is what's happening with the nutrition and what's happening with the strength coaches. And is my team getting better in that area? Because that is where you win games in October, September, especially late November. That's what's going to make the difference.
I agree with you, but there's one game does give me doubts. Is can you go to Columbia, South Carolina, and play like you're supposed to? Because if you don't, you will get your ass whipped down there in Columbia, South Carolina. But and one thing, Kristen, you're gonna love this. However, your dad was talking about that Coach DeBoer was going to wind up on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And I got to throw this out there. We're going to go to South Carolina for our next coach. It ain't going to be in Clemson. It's going to be over in Columbia. I know your dad ain't going to like that, Chris, but that's where I want to go.
Oh, you want me to come down here and be the head coach? You want me to bring my 1-7 arena?
Absolutely not. No.
No, I'm talking about Shane Beamer. But if he wants you to be on his staff, that's good too.
Wow. Shane Beamer.
To Columbia with the truck. Yeah.
Well,
that's
good
who
for
I
him,
want. I want somebody that has done what he's done with less talent. He impresses me.
No, he's a good coach.
He's the next one I want to touch the
He's a jolly guy. I mean,
he's
about
great
social
coach.
media. He's on social media more than the players. I mean, so he has taken a different angle, but he still requires toughness. He's not going to let the players run the asylum. He's not going to allow that to happen.
Exactly. That's what I like about him.
Right. So, but he gets it that you need to be able to play the game of social media and how to, to respond and communicate with these young guys. He gets all of that. And he's a great recruiter when you talk about having to be very active in the college free agency, if you will. You got to be good in the transfer portal. You got to be able to plug and play, finding the right guys, fit your system that you can plug in, and then recruit those guys that wants to be a part of your program that say, hey, I know I got to grow, I got to get bigger, I got to get faster and stronger, that I'm willing to do that, and they're going to be a part of that program 4 or 5 years. So he has a keen eye for doing that. Again, I know everybody giving them some love, but listen, there's a lot of people like me too saying that they could be a 9-10 win team, but South Carolina can also be a 6-win team. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And I don't think the margin is that thick. I think it's razor thin.
You like that, Christian? Well, I get him thinking now, don't I, Christian?
Yeah, you got him thinking for sure, man.
No, I ain't worried about it.
He said.
We'll get the next great coach to come to Columbia, South Carolina, God's country, and the best fan base in America. It don't matter. So if he comes here, I'll still be an Alabama fan. I'll be having a little bit more insight to talk about if he comes here, because me and him are close. We talk on the phone.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know if I see that
happening.
happening. I like him, but I don't see that happening. I
got
to
I need to peep Kellen's game out.
Hey, Christian.
Bryce, we appreciate
what he could do at Alabama with all that talent.
Yeah, no, I think he'd be a great coach. I personally, I don't see that happening, but like I said, I think he's a really, really good coach. Bryce, we got to get out of here, man. We appreciate you.
The other USC.
Let me talk.
Absolutely, man.
You, POP and Christian.
Yes, sir. Good talking with you. Long time no see, but good to have you.
My prediction, Kalen DeBoer to the fake USC, the left coast, Southern California in 2 years.
Wow,
that's
quite the take there to leave the show on. All right, we got to get out of here. There you go.
You got to get back eating fish tacos. You can't find them down all them little mom and pop things y'all be advertising on the show. They ain't got no fish tacos. They ain't got no lettuce wraps. They got
we got to get out of here. You got to start looking at the clock, man. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Up next, T-Town Sports Daily. We'll see you tomorrow right here, Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC.
You've been listening to the Miller's Edge, tackling sports daily.
WTBC Tuscaloosa and W265 CG